I completely screwed up here. This week's episode was supposed to be about TIG welding tubes. And it was about right here so that I noticed that I was having a bit of a gas problem, a coverage issue, and then it was really evident on the other side. I turn around and look at the cylinder back there and it is flat empty. And so are the other 9 that I have here stored at the shop. So rather than burning a whole week of posting nothing, I figured, well, let's do the obligatory question and answer comment because a lot of people ask a lot of questions. I don't necessarily get back to them all the time. And of course, on the last video, a lot of guys want to know about the pink glove story. So I guess here it is. I'm Justin. Welcome to Weld Coach.
It's Weld Coach, your personal welding instructor, anywhere.
The number one question I get is about Weld Coach. Now, this isn't meant to be a big plug, but a lot of people don't seem to understand all of it and how it works. So we'll go over that real quick. What is Weld Coach? Does it actually work? Well, there is Weld Coach, the YouTube channel. I'll explain why it's divided from TFS in a minute, but Weld Coach is weldcoach.com, as in it's an online platform where you can go learn how to weld from a real life instructor, like an actual person on the other end of your device, not a subscription service, not a bunch of pre-recorded classes, an actual welding instructor, vetted professional on the other end of your device, right? It's a live class, it is one-on-one, it's as close to in-person as you're ever going to get without the person physically standing there. So same everything else, they're just not physically there, right? So that's what weldcoach.com is. When you go there and you pick a class, what you want to learn specifically, it's all about what you want to learn. So if you want to learn how to TIG weld aluminum, you book the aluminum TIG welding class. The material for that class ships to your door, right? So all the coupons you need, all the filler you need, the tungsten you need, it all ships right out to you. And then you're connected just by a push of a button. The beauty of it is that there's no anything you have to download. It's not Zoom. It's not anybody else's extension or platform. It was built entirely from scratch for this purpose, right? So the call quality or the class video quality is literally as high as 4K. If your internet speed and your camera can broadcast that, that's as clear as it's going to be. But there's nothing to download. So, your iPhone can talk to a freaking Android. Your laptop can talk to your PC can talk to a MacBook or whatever the case, right? So there's nothing to download. There's no apps. There's no extensions. There's no, none of that garbage. It's just straight up, you want to learn how to weld. Here's a person that can see everything, show you everything, and teach you everything you want to know about welding. That's what weldcoach.com is. And of course, this channel is a dedicated welding channel. And some of you guys probably didn't, if you're new here or whatever, you also see me on the fabrication series. That's probably where you originally discovered me. And that is my other channel, but you might not have guessed in the name that the fabrication series was supposed to be fabrication content, not necessarily welding content, right? And the way that YouTube algorithm works is that people want the content that they're most interested in, right? So there are those who are interested in fabrication, but not welding. There's those who are interested in welding, but not fabrication. There's not many of them that are interested in welding and fabrication. So it was in our best interest, of course, once Weld Coach got launched, to put all of the welding content or the education-specific content for welding onto the Weld Coach channel. And that's why that started. For those of you who ask a lot about TFS, yeah, it's going back to fabrication stuff. It's just taken a while to get to that point, I guess. So enough about Weld Coach for now. A very common question that people write in all the time, even though it was discussed in another episode or whatever. What is this plate that's sitting on top of my table, and why the hell do I use it, right? This is called a benchtop welding plate, okay? So as the name implies, it's meant to go on your benchtop, and you're supposed to weld on it. It's basically a sacrificial plate. Okay, so the table that it's attached to here is called a fixture table. It's not necessarily a welding table. Okay, you do weld to fixture or weld on fixture tables, right? When you put your parts and stuff together, you'll end up welding on it, right? When you're tacking it up or whatever the case. But for the sole purpose of practicing welding, fixture tables are not meant for that, right? You want to keep your fixture table flat, even, clean, nice, protected, if you will. If you look at my benchtop plate here, you'll notice there's a lot of pitting marks, a lot of arc marks. That's for when the part doesn't have good continuity or good connection for grounding it, if you will. So sometimes it'll arc out, and when it does that, it pits the metal. It basically digs a hole in it. And if you do that and you grind it down, or if you got a bunch of BBs or spatter all over it, the only way is to scrape it, grind it, whatever. And if you do that, then you lose the flatness and the consistency of your fixture table. So another thing you can also think about is this is made out of aluminum, and this is made out of cast iron. So the aluminum is a lot softer, not likely to scratch your parts or whatever the case is as the cast iron will. So if you got some bright mirror polished stainless, for example, it would get destroyed if you're moving it around on the fixture table, whereas it would not get destroyed if you're moving it around on an aluminum benchtop welding plate. So in case you wanted to know, shameless plug, these are available at weldmetalsonline.com. It is called a benchtop welding plate, and they are available in several different sizes. So consider a benchtop welding plate basically a sacrificial plate that you can use for the sole purpose of practicing welding or to keep your fixture table protected when you're not using it as a fixture table. Now, since I do plug Weld Metals often, or talk about it often, people often ask me, do I own it? I think it's pretty obvious, but yes, I do own weldmetalsonline.com. But why don't I push it or tell people all the time, buy from Weld Metals because I own it? And the reason why is because I believe a product should sell on its own merit, right? Just because I own it doesn't necessarily make it, that much better or whatever the case is. The product has to survive on its own, not just because I'm attached to it. That's pretty standard business practice. I mean, I know these days, especially with social media influencers and stuff, they're always like, buy my brand because, because I made it. That's not me. I'm a businessman. I'm not I do have YouTube channels, but that's not my style. That's just the way it is. But yeah, if you want to support, us, you want to support our channels, obviously, if you want to support the employees that we have working here and their families who depend on, the continuous employment, then, please buy from weldmetalsonline.com. And we've got probably the best welding material, practice material that you're ever going to find. It's all made here in USA, right here in Vegas right now. So, yeah. So something else I get a lot is, what is my welding or teaching experience? I've officially been welding for 22, 23 years, somewhere in there now, over 20 years. Usually you stop counting once you hit that 20-year mark. Teaching out of that, I've been teaching for 7 years professionally between the classes in school that we had here in Vegas at my shop, and now, of course, extending and continuing on to weldcoach.com. But yeah, I've been doing that for that. TIG welding, probably 18 of those years, I think. It was only like three or 4 years after learning how to MIG weld initially and stick weld and stuff like that I picked up TIG, and hell, even to this day I'm still learning. So yeah, that's my experience in it. I absolutely love it. Teaching is a really awesome thing. I love it when the light turns on in somebody's head, the aha moment. They're just like, there it is, really awesome. I love that stuff. So, but one thing people will always ask the opposite, or kind of the negative side of that. What annoys me the most about teaching? It's probably the internet in general, right? There's what, I got another question on here that kind of goes into that, but there's a lot of misconception about welding, and you find a lot of it on the internet, like things like scrubbing your aluminum with a wire brush before you weld it. You don't have to do that unless your aluminum is destroyed, if it's really bad. Like if it looks like my benchtop plate, yeah, you don't want to give that a little scrub. There's a lot of misinformation out there. It's not all, like not every place you're going to go, it's not all bad or misinformation, but it's hard to find people that you can trust with good information, and that kind of annoys me. So when people come in like super hardcore, like they'll spend all this money on all these consumables and basically get taken advantage of because of all that information, that's the kind of stuff that really annoys me. I like to be very straight up and upfront and realistic with everybody that I teach, right? I'm not going to be like, oh yeah, go buy a 50-piece cup kit because that's going to make you a good welder. Make sure you have dedicated brushes for stuff you don't need or whatever. I mean, I shoot people straight. So the information that we give out is, it annoys me that it gets. I mean, some people get taken advantage of, I guess is the best way to put it. So I don't really have a good way to, explain it, I guess. What's with the pink gloves, obviously. But you know what? Actually, I need to talk about the last video for a second because that'll lead into the pink gloves, I suppose. Back to that whole spot welding thing. I never thought the spot welder trick and all that would lead into 2 episodes, but because of you guys who asked so often, it did. The last video was about spot welding, using the spot welder trick on aluminum specifically. And the reason why it did not work is because aluminum has an oxide layer on it, and it's surrounding the entire coupon. And that, you can't break through it because the positive cycle of the AC TIG wave is what breaks the aluminum oxide. So a lot of people were like, well, why don't you just wire brush it? Well, you can't remove the oxide layer. I mean, you can, but for only milliseconds. So if you scrape off the oxide layer or brush it off or grind it off or whatever the case is, even on this benchtop plate, it's immediately reformed, just like that. So the positive cycle of the AC TIG wave is what's breaking the oxide layer away. So even if you wire brush it, it'll immediately grow right back. That's kind of one of those pet peeves, you see like on the internet groups or the welding groups or whatever. They're always like, oh yeah, you need to wire brush it more. And they'll be like, oh yeah, I brushed it and then I acetone wiped it, then I brushed it again and I welded like crap. But it must be because I didn't brush it enough. It's like, no, you cannot physically remove the oxide layer without it growing back immediately. And that's also why when we weld, we have to shield it in argon gas. Because once it hits atmosphere, oxide layer grows back instantaneously or within milliseconds, right? So there was that question, and the answer is no. Scientifically speaking, we can't do it unless we break the oxide layer. And a lot of people asked about just drilling a hole into the top coupon. Well, the oxide layer is still present, right? It's still present on top, it's present on the bottom, and now it's present on the walls or the thickness of the coupon, which it would have to be broken the exact same way. Not to mention if you put a hole in the top of the coupon or in the upper coupon and you have to fill it with filler, it's not a spot weld anymore, it's a rosette or a plug weld, which some people call it. So scientifically speaking, no, it's not possible. I mean, I appreciate everybody wanting to try to find a different way or a different method of solving this problem, but scientifically speaking, you can't do it. I mean, there's no way around it. So you got to stick to doing plug welds or rivets or a different joint configuration than trying to do a spot weld. So in that video there, I did mention the pink gloves. Now, kind of a funny story. When I'm shooting these videos, I often just blurt out random stuff, while I'm welding or whatever. And that was just one of those random lines. It normally would have been edited out. I wouldn't normally, suggest that maybe you guys want to learn about my pink gloves. But, since it was all done in one take, I was starting to do the weld while I was simultaneously talking. And, that line had to stay in there. And the surprise, a lot of you guys wanted to know about the pink gloves and what the story is behind it. I did mention in there in the last video, it's not what you think, because it's not. A lot of people guessed, but not necessarily it. So, 2021, I was hired to appear at FabTech in Chicago, and this specifically, I was going to go to the CK Worldwide booth and demo the new MT375. If you want to know about that machine, it's freaking awesome. I do have one, and eventually I'm going to review it and do everything else like that. But before it was released, I had to go there and then demo the machine and then, shake babies and kiss hands. And I forgot my gloves here in Vegas, right? So I usually like to bring my own PPE. A lot of the booths, they have their own PPE in the booth, but hundreds of people have used it beforehand. So if you put convention gloves on, it's like putting your hand into a puddle of sludge or something like that. It's disgusting, right? They're usually sweaty, they stink, and you just don't know. It's gross, right? Plus, a lot of people make the rookie mistakes, like they'll grab hot metal, so like an XL would be all shrunken up like a small. So it's things like that. Now, since I forgot my gloves, Justin Voss was there. He's the creator of Defiant Metal, also a friend of mine. And if you want to buy some pink gloves, Defiant Metal ones like I wear, do so at weldmetalsonline.com, because you're supporting two people in the industry in that instance. But we crossed paths as I was on my way to CK's booth, and I was like, "Hey Justin, I need some XL TIG gloves, like fast, man. I totally forgot mine." He's like, "Ooh, you know what? Oh man, all I got is the pink in XL, and you probably don't want that." I'm like, I don't care. I'll take the pink gloves. Screw it, So I go there at the CK booth and I do my thing. I forget all about the pink gloves, bring them back here to Vegas, and then I see that, I just took them out of my suitcase and or my backpack here, and I was like, oh, wow, that's cool. I forgot I had these or whatever. And I told my wife, I was like, here, grab the camera real quick, and I'm gonna do this like funny looking pose. And I'm pretty sure the caption was, hopefully my welds will be as pretty as my gloves. And you look at the analytics of the pages, right? My followers and engagements and stuff like that. across Instagram and Facebook, where I posted both of those. Like, everything's kind of on the steady up, your followers, your engagement, your everything else like that. And as soon as I made that post, it was like, it just went straight down. Like, it must have pissed off a whole bunch of people, or, you know, some manly men that thought that, you know, guys should never wear pink or whatever the case is, or maybe they just got the wrong impression about me or whatever, who knows. Probably just like the most homophobic people ever that I don't really care follow me anyway. So after seeing that, I was like, you know what, from now on I'm going to wear the shit out of these gloves if it keeps people like that away from me or off my channel, because they're the ones that cause the most trouble anyway. But either way, a lot of people suggested yes for breast cancer awareness. I am all for boobies, and yes, if this makes the awareness go even further, you know, then so be it. I did have an aunt, unfortunately, went out that way. You could say I wear that in her memory, but you know, I just wear pink gloves because I like the pink gloves. I should also mention at the same time, some people did also guess, like, this is the only thing pink in my shop, so it's extremely useful. I never ever lose my gloves. They're easy to find, so if I set them down somewhere, they stick out like a sore thumb. A few other people mentioned even that having these, nobody would steal your gloves, you know, because everybody knows that they're yours. I don't have a problem with people stealing my gloves here at the shop. I don't believe any of my crew would do that, but I can see that it's probably pretty useful for that. So that's why I wear the pink gloves. That's the whole story behind how I got them and why I made the switch. And to be honest with you, maybe it's just one of those things, but they feel softer. Let's see, another common question. Do I have a background in radio or announcing? No, this is my voice. I've never been on radio, and I've never announced for anybody. Well, I mean, I kind of have announced, like, as kind of a joke, because a lot of people have heard my voice and they're like, oh yeah, you gotta, you know, announce. I think I did it for a wedding where I announced to everybody, the whole family, as they went by or whatever, and they wanted me to go extra radio on it or something like that. I did that once, but no, I've never been on radio or had an announcing job. I think announcing would be really fun, you know. But I can. This is my voice, and I can't get away from it. Even when people call Weld Metals or TFS, they're always like, oh, are you that guy on YouTube? And I'm like, yeah, that's me. Yeah. So people do that all the time. Kind of crazy. What is my actual background? So you've seen me do a lot of things over, you know, the course of all these years on YouTube. My actual background or professional background is automotive performance fabrication specialist. That's the title that I coined for it. But these days, you know, I mean, I own several businesses. I you know, run those businesses. I still occasionally build for people, not very often anymore, because there's almost no time and I'm out of space. And of course, there's not as much money in building stuff since I started telling the internet how to build stuff. So a lot of it, you know, it's kind of gone down. Unfortunately, I'm partially to blame for it. But yes, I am originally started out as a mechanic, and then I built my way up as a mechanic into doing heavy equipment, earth movers. Diesel was my main career or my main profession before I went off and got a degree and stuff. But it was supposed to be like a fallback. So in case my company or my businesses did not work, I could always go back to working on earth movers. And luckily, you know, we're still doing good. I haven't had to go back and work on earth movers. I do kind of miss it a little bit. But yeah, I started building race cars, lowriders, chassis. I even had a manufacturing division for a while, so we picked a very niche market car and we started building parts for those cars, like bolt-on performance fab stuff, you know, things like that. So that's my background. I'm in welding and automotive performance fabrication. So last one I got here is, why is the information about welding so different across channels and groups? Now, this is kind of like I guess a sensitive topic. And you know, before I get into this, let me check the cameras real quick because we might be running low on the time. So I guess it's kind of a good thing that I double checked those cameras there, because that one over there overheated, now it won't turn on, and this one had a dead battery, so this will probably be the last question. But why is the information about welding so different across channels and groups? This is a big question we get a lot, mostly from our students in our class on Weld Coach. But the answer is, it has two answers effectively to go to two different explanations for this. The first one is that welding is not easy. TIG welding specifically is very difficult to do. Now, you can know all about it, but you cannot know how to do it unless you've actually done it. Or in other words, you can learn everything about it, have the knowledge about it, but until you have the hands-on visual and data collected from doing it, then you effectively don't know how to weld. You know about welding, but not how to do it. There is no substitution for hood time, as they say. You have to spend the time just screwing some stuff up so that way you collect the data on how you're going to do it. There isn't just one way. There isn't just, you know, a secret setting that you can just put it into your machine that's going to make you suddenly weld. It doesn't exist. You have to do the time, and you have to see it and understand what everything does in order to make it all happen correctly. And that's why you get a lot of information on, let's say, groups, apps, this, that, and the other. You could ask a welding group, you know, you lay down a crappy weld or something, you're like, what am I doing wrong? And you may get like 30 different answers. Those 30 answers could all be correct. They could also be all incorrect, because most welding groups are filled with, let's say, beginners that don't necessarily have the answer, and all they do is regurgitate the knowledge that they saw or read on a video. It's hard to get information that you trust on it, but you have to be able to, you know, submerge yourself into actually doing this, right? So the reason why the information is all over the place, it's because there is no right or wrong as long as the result is correct. So whatever you did to achieve the correct passing result, however you got there, is completely irrelevant, and everybody has their own way or their own experience with it. So that should also lead into another plug about Weld Coach. When you get connected with an actual instructor, with a coach on the other end of your device, their job is to teach you how you're going to do it. Their job is to articulate the information and give it to you, just the same as like I do on this video here, but you get it from an actual person, live person on the other end of your device. So it's getting trusted information is very, very difficult. I even remember somebody asked in a comment, he said, why is the information about cups that I put in that video so different than, let's say, the Miller app, what it recommends? It's because the information I provided is based on my years of experience. The information in the Miller app is based on whoever contributed to making that app and their information on it, right? And it's been done, you know, the same way for who knows how many years, right? So you can't just plug in some shit into the machine and expect to, you know, make some magic with it. You got to do the time. But it also really helps to get somebody to tell you, like right then and there, what's going on and how to do it. I feel like I rambled on this last one here, so yeah, I think I'm going to cut it off there. I truly hope this Q&A probably helps you out, answers some of your questions. These are at least the most popular ones that always come up here, and you know, I think I'll go get some argon, and then we'll do some tubes probably next week. So thanks for tuning in. Go to weldcoach.com, get a friggin' class. I mean, see how quick and easy this stuff is, and shop at Weld Metals, because supporting the welding community and other people. Got a question? Put it down below. Bye. Oh, and subscribe too. I forgot about that. Yeah, I have to say that. YouTube stuff.